Now, let's go to the ambitious part. Well, if you want to be ambitious and maintain, let's say, the same level of expenditure, you have to make economies somewhere. So we decide to make economies basically on the largest item, which is the CAP, the Common Agriculture Policy, and the Cohesion Policy. And what we did, we decided, we propose to maintain them stable at nominal level. You know, not in real level, but in nominal level. This means you keep the same amount every year, but you know that an amount in the future is less value than an amount today because you have inflation, of course. And another thing we propose to have for the administrative expenditure, except the pension, we propose to have stabilization below inflation. And basically, if you want to know the result of this exercise, we just to remember that in the last year of the next period, in 2020, you will be 1/3 of the EU budget for the agriculture, 1/3 for the cohesion policy, and 1/3 for the rest. And because, of course, we maintain at current level, in fact, we decrease cohesion policy and PAC, which are large amount. You see, it's 1/3. We make room for other priorities, and basically the priorities are the EU 2020 priorities. This means competitiveness, infrastructure, and something about also external policy. And the second, let's say, sentence that you will hear very often on the EU budget is that it's an evolution and not a revolution. And why an evolution and a revolution? If you speak to, let's say, Swedes, they say, scrap the cap. Of course, if you speak to a French, he will say, if you just put something on the cap, you will just not approve anything. So you have to reach anonymity. And for reaching anonymity, you have just to have an evolution, not a revolution. So let's go to some detail. So this is basically the level, as what I said. It's for the 7 years. It's not per year. So it's let's say 1,000 billion in commitment appropriation and a bit less in payment appropriation. By the way, payment appropriation is what is important for member state budget, because this is real money. Commitment appropriation is just a commitment. It means you will say that you will spend, but it's when you spend and you have to pay that you need the money from the member states. Okay, this yes, it's the same. This is just what is outside the multi-annual framework. I will not detail it except if it's interesting for you. And we'll see here this slide seems interesting because it shows a heading, what I say, the 5 headings. The one is called smart and inclusive growth. We have always nice words for the heading. What does it mean? It means it's research, training, infrastructure, and the cohesion policy. Okay? The second is sustainable natural resource. Basically, it's a pack. It's agriculture and a bit of fishery, also probably less interesting for you, and also a bit of environment. By the way, environment is mainstream, we say. This means that it's everywhere in the budget. There is no really an item, and you can imagine why. Imagine that we say we will give money for environment. It could be a lot of things, very different things. You have then a heading about security and citizenship. You have a heading for the external part, for the external policy, and you have administration. Now you can just to say administration. Okay, they said that there will be very cautious with administrative expenditure, but well, it's a 10% increase of the period. Well, it's not so cautious. don't forget that we have a specific pension scheme. And of course, 20 years ago, there was nobody on the institution pension scheme, so there was no pension to pay. It's a pay-as-you-go system. Now, of course, the people who enter the Commission or the European Parliament, let's say 30 or 40 years ago, they go to pension and you need to pay them. So it explains the increase. It's not that we receive a larger pension, but it's the number of pension which increased with time. Okay, so when we said that it was, when I said that it was ambitious, this means that you have huge change about some part. You know, we will increase competitiveness, infrastructure, security, and global Europe, and we will decrease PAC and cohesion policy. This is a decrease, and you see PAC, basically the idea of PAC is to maintain it at the same level in current price. This means you give the same amount every year, and the cohesion policy is a bit different because you have to define the rule and to change the size, so it's basically the same result, but it's a bit different profile. Now, let's illustrate some of the expenditure. You have, the Commission is proposed 50 billion investment in connecting Europe. This is a bit the result of the gas crisis, I would say. You know, the gas crisis, everybody just found that gas could flow from east to west, but it was not possible to flow it from west to east, which would have helped to solve the crisis. And people say, why? Well, because they are lacking some infrastructure. And, well, it's not only for gas, it's also for transport, it's also for IT, but the idea that you need to have some pan-European infrastructure, and it will not be financed completely by the Commission. Private financing is, of course, important also, and but this idea is one of the main ideas of the new proposal.